in defining psychology. So without any further ado, the floor is yours. Welcome, Dr. Ami. Your microphone is unmuted. Your microphone is muted, Dr. Ami.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. On this topic, I was telling Sister Diana, this is not an easy topic. How am I going to work on this? I've been following the Maqasid philosophy study, reading and listening to Prof. Jasir Auda and Dr. Ali Abdul Mun'im to increase my own knowledge. But now this time I have to read Professor Malik Badri's thought and works based on this maqasid. So I'll try. I've tried my best, but I do not know if it's going to satisfy everyone in this class. But regardless, I will do my presentation. So in my opinion, one of the good way to continue the legacy of Professor Malik Badri is to produce ilm. And in this regard, then Maqasid approach is very relevant because I think in the beginning, when we discuss about Islamization of psychology, Islamic psychology, then we would be thinking about method. And apparently, we have to be thankful to our great scholars. One of them is Professor Jasir Auda, because they work to formulate. They work over the years, long time, spiritually, intellectually, to formulate this thought on the methodology of developing Islamic knowledge, integrating Islam and science and everything related to that. So we are thankful for their work, and may Allah bless them all. Now today, I'd like to touch some points related to this approach as it is relevant to developing Islamic psychology. But first of all, let us touch on the classic maqasid. I bet everyone here is already knowledgeable about this, classic maqasid. In taking this tradition in maqasid, Prof. Jasir Auda came up with some of these principles in the maqasid, and tried to. He came up with this 6 list, of the purposes of our religion, of Sharia. We call this the classic maqasid. So let's begin with this. Before then later we will see the Professor Malik Badri's idea, and the maqasid principle that as we understand it today. And then in the third part, I think I'm going to try to go very quickly because of time with this. The maqasid philosophy for producing ilm in Islamic psychology. Okay. So in classical maqasid, the deen, Islam, is revealed for a purpose. In understanding the purpose of the revelation, our early ulama defined the following. The purpose are to preserve faith, iman, the deen, soul, intellect, akul, offsprings, progeny, to preserve honor or human dignity, and to preserve economy or wealth. Some ulama and another will have different points, but if you integrate them, then these 6 points came to the front, and this is what can be concluded regarding the classical maqasid. Islam, according to its maqasid, is aiming at achieving the good life of the larger humanities, which, according to Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah, show the following characteristic: that is justice, mercy, wisdom, and common good, maslahat. Now, based on this, we will see some of Professor Malik Badri's work. Professor Malik Badri thought and work share commonalities with the maqasid principles. that was the question, maybe especially the question from Sister Diana, because we've been discussing maqasid. This is some of the statement that Professor Malik Badri wrote in his works. Yeah, there are gems in psychology of the West, things we should not throw away, such as in their technique and method in approaching problems. Yet philosophically, if we follow, they're very dangerous. It reduces the perspectives on being human. And he also said something, this last point, no psychology can be helpful to Muslims without taking Islam as a worldview into consideration. So this is like a really important principle in trying to integrate Islamic psychology, mainstream psychology, Western psychology. So the good things we can always take, but be very careful. There are these traps that might got us fall into the lizard hole. Yeah, the pit there. Okay. Now, based on such principle, we can now understand how Prof. Malik Badri constructed his thoughts on psychology in a way that it shall be directed to the wider maslahat, not the opposite. As Western psychology has all this philosophy that are dangerous to human, to us as Muslim. So the question of maslahat can be directed toward that. Okay, would our psychology from the West really bring us to the maslahat or not? That's a big question. Yeah, and then we start to dig into our tradition in the Muslim, in the Muslim Islamic principle. I'm sorry, and try to understand and reflect on that and critically view whether the concept that we have are really directing us to that, or whether it bring us to another direction. Some of his works delve deep into the problems of humanities and show that through its maqasid, Islam has prescribed some ethical guidelines to prevent such problem or crisis to occur. For example, his writings touch problems on alcoholism. This is like, alcoholism is like going against the good purpose of preserving life and alcohol, because people get intoxicated with that. People think differently, behave differently because the neurochemical has changed because of the influence of this chemical. And also for the more current issues in the world, the largest epidemic in the world, he also wrote about AIDS and HIV. So he disagreed with the total rejection of anything that has been developed in Western countries. Total rejection, he disagreed. It's interesting here because then he suggested some psychological principles that might help without us having to conflict with the philosophy behind an approach. It's interesting, let's contrast that with what Prof. Jasir Auda, the maqasid guru of today, said. In the maqasid principle, essence becomes so important. Something may be called Islamic, but basically it is not. Or something is judged to be un-Islamic, even though it can serve the universal purposes of this religion well. And because maqasid is basically questioning about the purpose of why we're doing something, we're prescribing rules or something, or we set policies on something, then the question on the kind of purpose that is served is very important. And I think from Malik Badri's work, we could see that his ideas, his thoughts are really serving the higher purpose of the deen. Yeah. Okay. Now here's another comparison. He wrote that Islam is a belief system that is the way of one's life, the way of life. Islam is not simply a religion in the narrow Western meaning of the term. It is an all-embracing style of life. The Holy Quran directs Muslims in matters as private as their sexual relation with spouses, and as broad as public as the way Muslim states should run its economic system. And on the right side, we can see Prof. Jasir Auda's writing. He was talking about the maqasid. You can check this in the basic book on Maqasid, the guideline for a beginner, yeah, Maqasid guideline for beginner. In order to remedy the individuality drawback, the notion of Maqasid has been expanded to include a wider scope of people, the community, nation, or humanity in general. The above expansion of the scope of Maqasid allows them, the ulama, yeah, to respond to global issues and concern and to evolve from wisdom behind the rulings to practical plans for reform and renewal. They also put Maqasid and its system of values in the center of the debates over citizenship, integration, and civil rights for Muslim minorities in non-Muslim majority societies. So this is how far the Maqasid discussion has gone today, and that ulama continue to work on this, yeah, to formulate what we call the principle that will guide us in confronting today's challenge and problems. Okay. Now, how is this this discussion on Maqasid is relevant for Islamic psychology? I think in this slide, I tried to connect that with the activity of producing ilm. Yeah, so continuing the legacy of Professor Malik Badri required that we are producing ilm, not just using. We're not just consumer, we are producer of ilm. But how? Producing Islamic knowledge in psychology in a way that, you know, people, the wider people can benefit, not just Muslims. So it needs at least formulation of sound methodology in the integration of Islam and psychology. It needs theory construction so as to represent Islamic worldview, developing the application of the knowledge and do research to find out the robustness of the created concept, dissemination of knowledge, either through journals, writings, conference, many ways we can disseminate knowledge. These days, dissemination is much more easier than the past, yeah, with the available internet connection around the world. And advocating for good practices according to the principles founded. These things need the hard work of everybody interested or committed to Islamic psychology. As far as I can see, in how our friends in the Islamic psychology worldwide community, what they're doing with Islamic psychology, there are two lines of development. First is revitalizing the classic concept of psychology found by early Muslim scholars. And the second, some scholars, researchers tried to develop new knowledge, yeah, by extracting authentic knowledge from the most important resource of Islam, that is Quran and Sunnah. Both can go, yeah, but if you want to discuss about Maqasid, then we will always have to talk about our context today, which is there is much differences in the context, in the problems that we face, the challenges that we face with the context of the Ummah in the past. So that's where the necessity of digging or exploring, extracting the knowledge from the most important resource of Islam, the Quran and Sunnah, becomes much more important today than ever, because the different context that we face. Now, just check on this, some questions that, you know, I was able to reflect on and, you know, try to come up with some question that maybe we can all think about it. How would Islamic psychology respond to today's challenges and issues? I believe as we learn modern mainstream psychology doesn't deal only with mental illness or psychotherapy, but its application is like everywhere. It talks about ecology. It talks about work, organization, education, and everything. Like almost in every aspect of human life, there is psychology in there. So how is it that Islamic psychology would respond to those, yeah? How are we going to expand the rahmah that Islam has, yeah, the rahmah that Islam has to the wider humanities of today when we are faced with these followings: ecological crisis, weakening of the most basic social institution like marriage and families, social conflicts, and at the individual level, there are a lot of despairs. Yeah, because of the materialistic world, the godless world, the godless view of life, and so on. So these are issues that we are facing today, the context that surround us as Muslims that live in today's world. And now we're talking about Islamic psychology. Let's not confine this science only in the therapy, but look, we have this context that we might that might need us to work on this seriously. Okay, so this is just a picture to visualize, yeah, the current condition that we face. Yeah, so work has tax ourselves mentally. Yeah, I think people work harder these days compared to us decades ago. Yeah, work came easy with us, but these days I think young people work so hard. Yeah, and the environmental degradation, youth confused. Yeah, and how are we? This is another question. How are we to claim the status as Haira Ummah? Now we're thinking about civilization. When we see the Ummah today, and where would psychology lay in that? Where is the position of Islamic psychology? You see how important it is to have a concept of human, of ourselves or ourselves as individuals, individuals as part of the society, individuals as part of the environment, and so on, that is rooted in our Islamic values, in our deen. If a tree is a metaphor for a good society, then the root is deep, the trunk is big, and the leaves and fruits are plentiful. Yeah, this is from Surah Ibrahim 24. This is our aims. Yeah, people that has deep understanding of their religion, good rooted in their values, well rooted in their values, strong, yeah, and fruitful, maslahah. How is it then Islamic psychology will play a role in this idea? Okay, I think that's one way to continue the legacy of Professor Malik Badri. So, as we all know too well, in the Maqasid tradition, our relation is defined as this, that each and every one of us, each individual has this 5 relation. It is built in with us, built in, yeah, in us, and you can't get rid of it, whether you're believer or non-believer, whether you're a Muslim or non-Muslim, you will always have the relationship with Allah, with the natural environment, yeah, with ourselves, with our social relation, social surroundings, and with our material world. And these are hierarchical. So the first one is most important. If we would say that this is where the first maqasid lies, like the faith, the religion, and then it goes down. Yeah, it will be chaotic if we put number 5 as the first and most important, like our relationship with the material things, material world. Okay, it's very interesting. I quote this because I take note on this. I mean, because I read this book written by I don't remember the writer, but the book is about the history of Medina, and the quote there said that the life of the Prophet and the companion, you can describe it as a high thinking and simple living. It's so touching, yeah. When you compare to today's world where it's filled with materialistic ideals, yeah. And this is the problem that we're facing, yeah. And no, it's not the problem that they're facing, but this is the role that we have to play in every and single relationship that we have with Allah. We have to do ibadah, our gratitude, yeah, to Him, with after all his blessing and bounties. With the nature, we do imara. With the social relation, we do khilafah, taking turn supporting within each other's role. Within ourselves, we do tazkiyah. The psychology plays so much role in this. And with the man-made environment, we do istiqdam, that is to utilize. So we don't put material or man-made environment as our God. That cannot be possible. We will be the world will be chaotic. I mean, it's already there, but as Muslim, we know it shouldn't be. Okay. Now, if then the intent to produce Islamic knowledge, authentic Islamic knowledge for Islamic psychology must be done, then it's going to involve the cyclical process of extracting theories from the revelation, empirically testing the theoretical proposition taken from the revelation, constructing meaning from the empirical study that we do, yeah, to test the theory, and then the last thing is validate the finding back with the revelation. So it's a cyclical process of producing, testing, and validating the knowledge that we produce. Okay. We're much indebted to our scholars, Prof. Jasir Auda and his team. Okay, give me 3 more minutes, yeah. He defined that ilm that we produce will be considered as maqasidi when they are following this characteristic, yeah. It has to be sign-based. It's not speculation. It's based on ayah or sign. In ayah, it comes from nature that we observe. It comes from the observation of ourselves, and it also comes from the Holy Book, the Revelation. Yeah, it has got to be muhit, integrated and comprehensive. It has got to be muzaka, purified knowledge. It's interesting how in Islam, the purification does not apply only to the knowledge that we produce, but also to the subject of the knowledge, which is us and the students. Yeah, as us as the producer of knowledge, and then the student who learn the knowledge. Tazaka is a process important for that, to acquire the good and useful knowledge. Yeah, and for this, returning back to the Arabic language, it doesn't have this meaning of ethnocentrism or things like that, but it's because Arabic has this good characteristic of delivering the revelation for humanities. I don't think I can explain that because I'm not an expert in Arabic, but somebody who knows Arabic will be able to explain how unique that language is. Okay. Now, there's another principle in the, some more principle, yeah, in the Maqasid philosophy for ilm that we will have to pay attention to. That is the presence of tasawwur and tasarruf. If we want to do an application that is the tasarruf, that is not based on sound concept, then that application will not be good. Yeah, it's going to have many flaws here and there. Tasarruf will have to be based on sound conceptual building, but sound conceptual building, that is the tasawwur, will not result unless the subject of the knowledge do tazkiyah. Okay, we witness today there's a lot of people who would be involved in science, in research, but they have different purpose rather than for the sake of bringing enlightenment to the people at large. We have too many of we know the fact that marketization of research. We know the fact of you can talk about vaccines. I don't know if vaccines really for helping people going through the pandemic, or I don't know, there are other interests. Yeah, when something is tascated, yeah, if something is purified, then it's going to be free from many interests other than the maslahah. Okay. Now we have big questions on that for today's academic tradition. Yeah. So tasarruf will only be good when it's based on a sound concept, good tasawwur, and good tasawwur will only be possible with the process of tazkiyah. Yeah. And it's interesting that in the Makasidi, in the Makasidi approach, it requires the dialogue between what we found that is based on the revelation that we believe in with the reality that we're facing today. So there has to be a dialogue on that, whether or not what we found is giving maslahah. If you say Islamic, but it's giving other people pain, then you have to have big question on that, whether that is Islamic. Yeah. So those are some important points in the tradition of the maqasid as it relates to knowledge building. The maqasid here is not the classical maqasid that I already mentioned in the beginning, but it's the development of the maqasid as philosophy for knowledge building. Okay. I'm promoting Professor Tasir Auda's book on envisioning Islamic scholarship. This will be very useful for us to help with the research, yeah, and so on. Okay. This is the cycle of developing knowledge that that is prescribed in the book. Yeah, first of all, we have to define purpose. So in the traditional maqasid, when we do research, we don't define problem, but we define purpose. The orientation is future. The orientation is not now, because if the orientation is now, maybe we don't solve anything. But if the orientation is future, then we're thinking of the kind of future that we want to create. We expect to create, we want to mend, yeah. We want the problem be mended, yeah, with our futuristic thinking. Yeah, that's how it is. And it's followed by cycle of reflection. Yeah, that is reflecting on the verses in the Quran and then recheck with the Sunnah. It has got to be consistent. There is no other way that the Quran and Sunnah you will pick up, something that is in contradiction. If there is contradiction, then the Quran should reign, because this is one and first and most important. Yeah. We will have to meticulously to checking on that. Yeah, very careful. And then we go on to use the framework. I will let Dr. Bagus to explain about this, because he's very keen in using this framework for developing knowledge. Yeah. So I will let him discuss about this framework later. After that, we do critical studies on literature. We have to check the kind of literature that is available in the market that is relevant to our study on an issue. For example, you want to check the issue of our attitude toward the environment. Perhaps Islam has better concept on that. That is the akhlaq with the natural surrounding, yeah, natural environment. And how is that defined in the Quran? Then, if after you do this, then with this framework, then you do check whether or not your concept is better. Very often it's more comprehensive. It goes deep down, yeah, shaping our behavior and thought, yeah, and mending our relationship with all the elements that I already mentioned. Yeah, and then you do this formative theories and principles, and then you check again whether or not what you have found is already serving the purpose that you intend to serve. Okay, so this is the cycle that we can use to develop Islamic knowledge based on the Maqasid approach, Maqasid philosophy, the Maqasid methodology based on Maqasid philosophy. I still need to learn so much about this, but I'm trying to do research based on this approach. And for the next part, the framework, I will let Dr. Bagus to explain more about it to all of you. I think that is all I can convey. And again, one way to preserve the legacy of Professor Malik Badri is to produce Islamic knowledge, ilm that is based on Islam. And what I just presented is one methodology that maybe we can use to develop such knowledge. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear Ustada, Dr. M.Sc. Zulaifah. Please, dear participants, round off digital applause if you wish, or you can open up your cameras and just physically do it like this. It was an amazing lecture, really. Thank you for giving us a thorough presentation regarding the Maqasid methodology that is presented by Professor Auda. It's very interesting, actually.
Yeah.
I also had the honor to listen to him several times. And yeah, it's a very useful method when people want to do research, mashallah. So that's amazing. Thank you. And we hope to listen more to you, Dr. Emi. And thank you for
I suggest that friends in Islamic psychology circle can access the videos from Jasir Auda when he explained about this. We invited him over to our conference at UII, and in the beginning, some friends was like reluctant. Islamic social science, they were arguing with me. We were debating on that. And, and then I said, okay, let's invite Prof. Jasir Auda and we will listen to him. And so he listened and he said, afterward, he said, thank you. I learned so much. So I suggest that students here can also learn from him and, take the I think it's very good, principles and method that we can apply to develop Islamic knowledge. I think Brother Jamaluddin.
Jazakallah khairan, Dr. Emi. I really agree. I had the honor to listen to him many times, and I really appreciate the methodology. And thank you for you presented it in a thorough way, Dr. Emi. So mashallah, you did an amazing job. Really, it was, I think, for all of us as seekers of knowledge, was very beneficial. You mentioned the circle, the method of seeing it as a circle when you try to advance in your research, looking at the framework, the purpose, cycle of reflection, critical studies, etc. Very interesting. And also what you mentioned with the quote of Professor Malik Badri in the beginning of your lecture, dear Ustada, that Professor Badri actually disagreed with total rejection of anything that has been developed in Western countries, that he was not against rejecting things that could be applicable to our Islamic paradigm and useful. He was just criticizing those who were trapped in the lizard hole, who in a sense were becoming tokens of something that is not Islamically oriented or applicable to our paradigm, which is to blindly follow something or just assimilate yourself, losing your own ontological reality. So that was amazing that you shed light on that. And that's something that we as seekers of knowledge could look upon, that we could actually look at other traditions, but first and foremost, we need to root ourselves in our Islamic paradigm, in the case of Islamic psychology, and our Islamic psychological notions, which is so important for us as students and seekers of knowledge. So thank you so much, Ustada, for shedding light. Once more, round of applause. I'm going now to present our next presenter, which will be the last presenter for the section 1 of this conference today. After that, we will have short Q&As. And please forgive us, we're a little bit